and welcome to this week's episode of the Story Behind the Stories with the Neepawa Banner Press. I'm your host this week, Casper Wehrhahn, writer, photographer, and archivist for the newspaper here. And of course, I'm not alone. I do have my wonderful co-worker here and friend, Joshua Jackson, fellow writer and photographer. Thank you very much for joining me this week.
Thank you for having me. Let me just say it's a pleasure. I've been on 1 week before, and I'm glad that I made the cut to be able to come back. Although, Casper, I'm not going to lie. As you know, I am built for radio. And this is actually kind of a struggle for me because I'm just so used to being into my notes and reading out what I have prepared. But now I actually have to make eye contact. So we are crushing out fears, and we are doing it. So it's a wonderful day, by the way. Happy May. Spring is here. Seeds are going in the ground. Weather is looking nice, and we have a jam-packed 20-page issue of the Neepawa Banner Press.
Yeah, we sure do. And of course, you mentioned already that you're used to radio, and you have a lot of notes when you do radio. And Josh actually has some notes for this week as well.
I've come prepared.
We're gonna get into that here right away because, as everyone, I believe, should know, we did have a recent election here, a federal election. So everyone's getting out, they were voting, and of course, those results wrapped up Monday evening, I believe 11 p.m. roughly. Everything was counted up, and then of course made official on the Tuesday morning there. So we have that in the paper this week on the front page, the results of that, and of course continued on to page 12. And if you don't know already, by the time of this episode, it was turning out to be a Liberal national minority. And of course, Dan Mazur here in the Riding Mountain Electoral District got re-elected once again to be our MP for the riding. So he's going to be representing us in Parliament there. And perhaps unsurprisingly for this riding, as I mentioned, Dan Mazur came up on top there, but what might be surprising is that we did see more Liberal support this year. NDP really sort of came down, I think, from the prior election. I know last election they got a pretty good boost there, actually. And then, of course, we had the PPC trailing behind there, and then the Green Party as well. Following in the last place there for the local anyway.
Yeah, so I'll kind of break it down a little further here for everyone. So Dan Mazur received 28,165 votes. So that is roughly 67.1% of the votes, the clear winner. But then we look at the Liberal candidate, Terry Hayward. He had 9,524 votes, which roughly equates to 22.7% of the votes. Our colleague Owen Devereaux writing this article, and one thing that really stood out for me is that never mind, I don't have that stat with me, but if we take a look to my other handy dandy notes, we also saw voter turnout rise this year, not only within our riding. In 2021, the last election, we were known as the Dauphin Swan River Neepawa riding, and there were 38,740 votes cast. But if we look to this year, and now the Riding Mountain Riding, which we have been rebranded as, there were 41,942 votes cast. And in case you like the math, just like me, that is a 7.63% increase from 2021. And if we take a look at this on more of a Canada-wide scale here, in 2021, there were 17,209,811 votes cast. So around 62% of the population went out and voted. And in 2025, the election that we had this week, 19,583,016 people went out and voted in Canada, and that's an estimated 68% turnout, which is better than last time as well. Just another neat stat that I like to throw in. The population of Canada in 2021 was 35 million, and now, according to the Government of Canada, in 2025, January, I believe, we have spiked all the way up to 41 million plus counting.
Yeah, it's really interesting over the years seeing how things play out, both in terms of course, the party that ends up getting in, but of course the people that have been turning out and actually casting their votes and all that. And of course, there will be some differentiation as well, depending on how much the population grows, what sort of age groups people are in, because of course, you have to be a certain age before you can vote, right? So, it gets really interesting. But touching on that as well, actually, kind of coinciding with this, there is a bit of a mock election that the schools do, and that is actually on page 12 with the carryover for this story. So you can kind of have a look at how things turned out on that smaller mock election scale there on page 12, and some wonderful photos of the kids there going out and doing their voting.
37 schools actually took part in that, which across the Riding Mountain riding. So I would assume that all the children got to read the platforms and kind of learn more. So I think that's really cool that they do that and have that. Now, Casper, we both went to NACI. We graduated, like a year apart from each other?
I think so, yeah.
Do you at all remember having a mock election?
I do not.
I don't either, but...
We might have done, and I just don't recall, but...
I don't recall it either, but I think that's actually a really great initiative to get kids engaged in democracy and learn what it's all about as they're young. And then when they grow up and they're able to vote, I think that's a wonderful tool. And it's also, I won't get into the numbers, I will let you, the reader, go and pick up our wonderful edition of the Neepawa Banner Press. But it's kind of surprising how the results of the kids mirrored kind of what we saw in this riding. Just before we do move on to the next topic, there is still one bit of information that I'd like to touch on that I glossed over earlier. Terry Hayward, the Liberal candidate, as we said, received 9,321 total votes, which nearly doubled the amount of votes that he had, or that the Liberals had in this riding since 2021. So it's really interesting to see the growth and just how things kind of ebb and flow from election to election.
Yeah, absolutely. And not entirely related to that, but still related to the election. I guess the biggest question now, since it is a minority government, is who is going to step up and work with the Liberals this go around. Yeah. Is there any particular party that you would like to see step up? And if so, is there anything you'd like to see them maybe try and do with this collaboration?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let me just start off by giving the big old asterisk. I kind of know politics, but I don't super well know politics, but I think having the two minorities could be the best way forward, and I just hope that we see some collaboration. I feel in this day and age, politics is so divisive, so I think given the tariffs and just kind of everything that's going on for Canada, I'd just like to see all the parties kind of work together and just make Canada the best it can be and just do what we have to do to kind of survive and thrive.
Yeah, no, I think that's very well said. I think for me personally, I mean, it's kind of hard to say, right? I mean, obviously I have the parties that I prefer the most.
Yeah. Don't we all?
But I mean, at the end of the day, if we can get some good collaboration in there and, just do what we can to improve things, however that might be. I know, of course, trade is a big one right now, especially interprovincially, because that's been an issue for so long now. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, a big concern, especially in this riding, elsewhere as well, outside of this riding, is just cracking down differently on crime. So I guess we'll have to see where that goes. But we have so much more to talk about in this paper, and we've already gone on with this for quite a bit. But before we move on from election stuff completely, we do want to touch on, just very quickly, on page 7, the Westlake Gladstone Council is seeking some input on how to carry out their elections on the next go around. And Joshua, you have these details, don't you?
Yes, I did write this story, very election-heavy theme here, but that is okay. So basically what the municipality of Westlake Gladstone is mulling over is they want to potentially change their election system for their municipality elections. Currently, they are at an at-large system where pretty much the councillor is elected by the voters across the municipality, but they've also been receiving some feedback lately of their municipality residents wanting to switch back to the ward system, which to my understanding is basically a ward councillor is elected by voters in a specific region. So if you check out the article in this week's edition of the Neepawa Banner Press, you can find that they have a website where they are looking for input and feedback. Of course, they want to do this as soon as possible because they do need 180 days before the next municipal election to lock it in by. Of what the release said, it sounds like they are gearing up for one in 2026. So I just thought that was really fascinating and something that you don't necessarily see municipalities switching to. I feel like you barely ever hear of anyone switching up how they do their elections and their systems.
Yeah, at least not that I'm familiar with.
No.
This is I'm pretty sure, first time hearing about it.
It's our first rodeo.
Yeah, we'll have to see, I guess, what people decide and how they carry things out. Mm-hmm. All right, getting out of the elections now. I'm sure everyone's tired of elections, and, well, hopefully won't have another one for a while.
Fingers crossed.
But we'll get into some sweeter stuff, quite literally at first here. Over on page 2, there's a few things going on, actually. The preview we have for the Chamber Fair, but read that for yourself, get a little bit of information on that, and look forward to that. But what we want to specifically talk about here for a few minutes is the Maple Syrup Festival in McCreary. Of course, they do that annually, and it's a wonderful event. I mean, unfortunately, I haven't been up there myself yet, but I really need to. I really do, Joshua. I need to get up there because it's a good time. You can tell from the photos there's so many things to do. But you tracked these photos down. You tracked down these details.
Yeah.
So share us some stuff about that.
So I, like you, am much in the same boat that I have sadly not been to the McCreary Maple Syrup Festival. But I think next year, 2026, we're going to take a banner group bonding trip down, and we're going to hit the McCreary Maple Syrup Festival hard. It looked like an absolutely wonderful event, though. So the 2-day festival celebrates local culture, tradition, and the sweet bounty of the Manitoba maple, which, something else I also learned, is that we are actually quite great at making maple syrup, and that is a local thing, which I think is the absolutely coolest thing, and I now want to learn all about that. They had a vendor's market, they had tours of the maple forest, they had breakfasts, and culture learning, and just great music, and all in all, it just looked like a phenomenal time. Now, Casper, I'm going to kind of hijack this for a second. We briefly talked about the Neepawa Chamber Fair, and you and I were talking about this one off air. The chamber is 10 years old, and I gotta say, I'm quite excited to attend this year's fair, 10th annual, and I think I was around for the first one, and that was the only one I bore witness to, and we were actually discussing it. It started off at the Yellowhead Center parking lot, so I'm very excited to see the new venue and how everything looks down at the fairgrounds. Yeah,
it is quite the change, as you mentioned. It used to be just outside the Yellowhead there, and it's quite the difference having it up there at the fairgrounds. I mean, they have more space to work with, I think. You can get some bigger attractions in there. And, I mean, it really is just a whole weekend full of activities, right? Like, it's pretty crazy, all the stuff going on. I mean, there's groups that collaborate with the chamber sort of to just, like, coordinate and include everything into the plans for the weekend so everyone knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. So a lot of work going on there behind the scenes to prepare for this. It's quite something.
Oh, of course.
The next thing we have here is actually a follow-up on a fundraiser, which was also a very sweet thing. And that's because it was a fundraiser selling donuts for a new pocket park, sort of a communal space in the downtown here in Neepawa. And that is being put together by Dream Ride, so Marsha Forgue and Gary Forgue, and of course all of their wonderful partners that are working with them to put together this Gillen Schmal Dream Ride Park. It's going to be a lovely seating area for everyone to use, and I anticipate it should be a very beautiful place for people to gather downtown. It's sort of a new vibrant addition to sort of spruce things up in here. And it did pretty darn well in my estimation. It sold 160 dozen donuts, and that went out to just over $1,000, $1,120 to be exact. So wonderful support there, and I'm very happy to see this, and very proud that the community has stepped up in this way to support them.
Yeah, I always love seeing communities step up in grassroots ways. I am a firm advocator of public green space. I think the more little parks and greenery and things that we can add within a town or a city, the better. I, for one, am very excited for this park to be constructed. It's a stone's throw away from our place of employment, so I look forward to those sunny Sunday afternoons, eating lunch at the park, not having a care in the world. So really great. Now, Casper, I gotta ask one thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Have you had Krispy Kreme before?
I have not, and it's funny that you asked me that, because I was going to ask you that before we moved on. Yes, but no, I've never had. I've always heard good things about them, but I've never had the chance to have them. I've only had Tim Hortons donuts. Ooh. So I was curious, but I didn't have it in the budget to pitch in, unfortunately.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I recommend. So I used to live in Winnipeg. It was always so busy when I went to go there that I never actually usually ended up getting something, but I got a box one time, and let me tell you guys, I shamefully devoured more than I care to admit, and maybe by more than I care to admit, I mean the whole box, but who's to say? They were so good, and they're some of my favorite donuts out there, so that's great. Yeah, just love to see that local grassroots groups are coming together and just making a great difference in our town, and just shaping and molding Neepawa into a vibrant green community. I absolutely love that. Now, Casper, speaking of our community,
yes.
One of the big issues, I'm going to backtrack on that. It's not an issue. One of the big things happening in our community is Project 320.
Yes, that is a very good thing to touch on. A project actually that we've talked about before, but had a bit of an update at the Rotary, didn't we?
Yeah, so one of my favorite things about this job is I just love getting to listen to little meetings and updates on the community, and just kind of keeping my pulse on that. So if you may not know, in 2024, the town purchased 320 acres of land on the northwestern edge of Neepawa for future development, and they went to the Rotary Club a few weeks ago and provided an update. Now, Casper, there were some statistics and very interesting things that stood out to me, and I'm just going to run you through that here.
Yes,
so
for sure.
The town needs, they did a survey, and they need 460 new dwellings by 2028, which is actually quite an insane number when you think about it.
Yes,
that's a lot of houses.
In that period of time as well, that's kind of shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not something you think of, but it's just real interesting that we actually have the physical numbers. And this one caught me really off guard, and I think you'll be just as surprised as it. So the quote says, we are the third largest growing community in Canada and the third largest in Manitoba. They also like to throw in the caveat that we are the only town in Manitoba on that list that doesn't have the core of Winnipeg to help its growth. So you see those feeder towns like Steinbach, Selkirk, and Niverville, they're just a stone's throw away from the perimeter. So it makes sense to have expanded communities out there
Right.
to feed in. But having Neepawa, which is, 2 to 2.5 hours away, a very impressive stat to see that we are absolutely growing that much.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, that absolutely is surprising. I mean, obviously, with Neepawa being so far apart from Winnipeg, it's not really a center that I guess benefits us in growth. So that makes sense. But it is surprising though that we're third in the entire nation.
Yeah, just little.
I didn't really expect that.
No.
I mean, I have been saying it for the past few years at least now, just acknowledging that Neepawa is growing and continuing to grow, and that I don't think it's really going to slow down anytime soon that I can foresee. But third in the whole nation for that is really surprising.
And I think that's something that we should actually be proud of. Like, I don't know, there's a lot of places in Canada, and usually, I don't know, for me, when you think of growth, you hear Alberta, BC, Ontario, but little old Neepawa, maybe not so little anymore, but I'm just glad to see all of the growth coming back here. It's just been amazing to see what has been developed. Like, you look at the CN property, and you look at the new hospital coming, and of course we had the new school announced from the budget. So we are quite literally bursting at the seams now. One of the things I also wanted to highlight about this is that in the first phase, the first phase of Project 320, the first 58 acres will contain 192 single-family homes, and for the multifamily portion of that, they are trying to maximize it out to around 220-ish. So that's a lot of homes that are going to be built in the next few years, which is a great thing, because in turn we will have all sorts of local construction companies working on these houses, and from that they got to eat and get groceries and stay somewhere. So we're just, I assume, going to see a very positive economic boom from this, and it's absolutely wonderful. Another thing that I found very fascinating is it will be strictly residential, at least in the first phase of the project, to meet Neepawa's housing needs. So I'm glad to see that we are just getting an absolute boom in housing. I think that is a great problem to have for a community.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you obviously want housing for everybody. And it's good to see that that is being addressed, because it's very well needed here. But yeah, I mean, it is really kind of a good problem to have, because that means the community is growing, and of course its economy is going to be growing as well with that, and hopefully businesses are going to be thriving even more than before. But yeah, with that growth, I mean, that means a few different things, right? Obviously, there's things that are making people want to stay here. I mean, with some of the things that you mentioned, like the hospital, for example, there's people that I know have come here from job offers specifically because they're like, oh yeah, this new hospital, that's like a really cool, like, awesome, like, personal career thing to be able to have happen. So, you know, that's a big draw. But then there's other stuff supporting that, right? We have had daycare developments, a whole bunch of stuff. So, I mean, we've really been making progress here, I think, in the community in a number of different ways. So that is really awesome to see.
I just do have one note on this.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll just say it. So, like, it's crazy. So we know the town, like, take core downtown Neepawa, and we assume that size. 320 acres. That is just an absolutely huge new chunk of land. I should have done the math and figured out how big Neepawa is compared to the 320 acres that's going to be developed, because I don't want to, like, I would like to know, what percentage are we increasing this town's size?
Right.
Like, are we doubling? I think that may seem a little lofty, but, like, something that is probably worth doing the numbers on, and I'm actually curious to know just how much in physical space, this grows Neepawa.
Yeah, that would be something to look at for sure. I don't recall how the map quite looked, but it is a pretty good chunk of land there that's going to be developed. So, yeah, would have to track that down. I know we had it in a previous edition of the paper, I'm pretty sure, sort of just marking, even just like the 58 acres maybe. But yeah, it'll be quite something. So
Yeah.
I'm eager to see it
Me
getting
too.
going there. We are starting to get short on time here, so just want to shout out a couple things here before we get wrapping up. We had some recognition for a number of different citizens from the area here on page 8. Of course, there was the Rotary with its Paul Harris Fellowship presentations. We had a presentation to, if I can find it here, the names.
The citizens honored at the Rotary Paul Harris banquet included Ron Nordstrom, Darren Rowe, Beatrice Betts, John Drinkwater, and Pam Miller.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I was having trouble finding it there.
I got your back.
And then, of course, the Neepawa Area Wildlife Association received some recognition in Winnipeg as well. And actually, right across on that page, on page 9, there was some wonderful enhancements to the Rosedale Farm Trail completed very recently, a year's, I should say, long project since about 2021. Working on that and getting some touch-ups and everything all finished up. Signage just went up, so that capped that off. And then, of course, we do have the Home and Garden, losing the speech here, Home and Garden feature on 10/11, and a little bit of a shout out there to Mother's Day on page 12 with a little article there. And so much more. I mean, there's sports and everything in here. It's like we said, it's a full paper.
Yeah, it's another 20-pager. So we have just plenty of content. So make sure that you go out and pick up your copy of the Neepawa Banner and Press today. And might I add, it's free.
It is.
It's
It is
free.
free,
You can't
and
go
that
wrong.
is why we very much appreciate anyone who advertises with us to keep us getting this paper out here, getting the news out there, and of course keeping it free for everybody to make use of and enjoy. So if you want to support us with some ads, you can reach us at ads@neepawabanner.com. We do also like to hear your thoughts, opinions, thumbs up, thumbs down, letters to the editor, news tips, photo submissions, all that sort of stuff. So you can send those to us at news@neepawabanner.com. You can also give us a phone call at 204-476-3401. Thank you so much on behalf of myself and Joshua for joining us today, and we will see you next time.